So, who wants a part-time job where your biggest workplace hazards include aggressive canines, fire-breathing gargoyle statues, and someone launching their barbecue grill into orbit? Welcome to Paperboy 2, where delivering newspapers means dodging every weird obstacle a suburban fever dream can throw at you. Set in a neighborhood that clearly has no zoning laws, Paperboy 2 features front yard skate parks, inexplicable moats, haunted houses, and people who seem personally offended by your presence on a bicycle. It's chaotic, punishingly difficult, and let's be honest, not all that fun. But if you don't take it too seriously, the over-the-top failures can become part of the comedy. Today we're diving into the Super Nintendo version of Paperboy 2, a sequel that takes the strange charm of the original and turns the dial up, though not necessarily in the right direction. For background viewing, SNES Drunk sums it up very well. Much faster than I'm about to. Link in the description. Basics. Paperboy 2 was released for the Super Nintendo in 1991, I think. Some spurious reports I've come across say 1992, and while I don't mind doing research when the reward is rewarding, pinpoint accuracy on the release date for this specific port of this specific title, not high on my better get it right list. Developed by Tengen and published by Mindscape, it is a sequel to the arcade classic Paperboy, and it made its way to multiple platforms. Today we're focusing on the SNES version. Just like the original, your job is to deliver newspapers and avoid disaster. But this time, you can serve both sides of the street, and the hazards have doubled. In number, in weirdness, and in how quickly they make you regret choosing this as your summer job. Overview. At first glance, Paperboy 2 looks like it's delivering more of the same. Hop on your bike, toss newspapers at mailboxes, and try not to get taken out by every moving object in the neighborhood. But the sequel expands things slightly. Now you're covering both sides of the street. There are new heroic moments, like stopping crimes or saving babies, if you happen to throw a paper at exactly the right time and pixel. The action plays out from a tilted, oblique angle camera, a hallmark of the series, which gives a kind of 2.5-dimensional feel to your neighborhood route. Personally, I've always had a rough time with these kinds of views. Judging your position in space and aiming your throws just right can be trickier than it looks. Paperboy 2 isn't the worst offender in this regard, but it's definitely in the same ballpark. That said, players who are comfortable with isometric style games may not find this to be too much of an issue. Where the original Paperboy eases you in, at least a little, before the mayhem ramps up, Paperboy 2 is brutal from the first few feet of sidewalk. You'll barely start pedaling before something tries to trip you, squash you, or knock you off your bike. There's no warm-up lap here. It just drops you into the madness and dares you to keep up. In theory, it's a bigger, better Paperboy. In practice, it's mostly just harder and weirder. The controls feel stiff, the obstacles are relentless, and the line between success and failure is often hilariously thin. If the original Paperboy was quirky and challenging, Paperboy 2 is that, but with the difficulty cranked up and the charm stretched a little thin. My youthful experience. Back in the day, I played the NES version of the original Paperboy and had a good time with it. It was weird, sure, but it had a certain rhythm. Chucking papers, dodging dogs, swerving around breakdancers. And once you settled into it, the challenge felt fair enough to keep coming back. I never played Paperboy 2 as a kid, and maybe that was for the best. I did briefly consider getting a real paper route at one point, but if I had played this version first, that thought probably would have evaporated faster than my character wiping out on a fire hydrant. Between the swerving cars, flying tires, and general suburban mayhem, This game makes paper delivery look more dangerous than a neighborhood-sized Rube Goldberg machine of doom. Coming to it for the first time as an adult definitely changes the lens. I don't have nostalgia to fall back on, just the raw gameplay, which doesn't exactly roll out the welcome mat. If anything, it grabs the welcome mat, sets it on fire, and then runs you over with a remote-controlled car. The look. Visually, Paperboy 2 holds its own. It may not be a graphical showcase for the SNES, but it does a solid job of presenting the chaos clearly. Sprites are clean and recognizable. Some of them even look great, and the animation, while a bit stiff, gets the job done. The Paperboy, or Paper Girl, is expressive enough, and the various neighborhood oddities are easy to identify, even if they're trying to end your career. The backgrounds mostly sit in the range of acceptable to slightly above average. They don't dazzle, but they support the action well enough without getting in the way. It doesn't have the jaw-dropping detail or wow factor of some Super Nintendo heavy hitters, but it never looks bad either. Overall, the sprite work is to my liking, and the game's visual style fits the strange tone it's going for. You won't pause the action just to admire the scenery, but at least you'll see what's hitting you. Just not before it's too late. Sound. The sound design in Paperboy 2 is a bit of a mixed bag. The sound effects, pretty solid. You get a nice variety of clangs, crashes, and thuds that do a good job selling the suburban chaos. Things like breaking windows, mailbox hits, and unfortunate wipeouts all have a satisfying audio punch. They're not pushing the SNES hardware or anything, but they're effective. And I always appreciate it when game sounds resemble their real-world counterparts, without being overly cartoony. The background music, though, kind of a letdown. It's not bad exactly, just oddly forgettable and strangely out of place. It has the vibe of a placeholder track that was supposed to be replaced with something more dynamic, but never was. There's a weird disconnect between the high-stakes absurdity on screen and the relatively tame music playing behind it. You'd think a game this chaotic would call for something a little more energetic or memorable. All in all, the sound effects carry their weight, but the music feels like it wandered in from a completely different game. Gameplay. On the surface, the controls in Paperboy 2 are fairly straightforward. The D-pad lets you move up, down, left, and right, which translates to speeding up, slowing down, or veering side to side along your route. It actually maps to the isometric perspective reasonably well. Throwing papers is split between the left and right sides. LB or Y throws left, RA or X throws right. In other words, this game gives you an entire SNES controller for what is essentially a two-button arcade concept. Hey, it works. The real challenge isn't in how you control the game, it's in how everything else behaves. The neighborhood wants you gone. Not just gone, but obliterated. Not just now, 10 seconds ago. It's the madness of the original cranked up to 11. No dog is friendly, no baby is approachable, no gutter is without a groping green grabby hand. Flame-throwing gargoyles, haunted houses, and even cannons break up the peace and monotony of suburban living. It's like the entire town had a meeting and unanimously voted to end your shift early and painfully. Many of the obstacles fall into that classic surprise, too late category. Hazards that come screaming onto the screen with zero warning. You'll often be punished for things you couldn't possibly react to in time, especially on a first attempt. It's a frustrating style of gameplay that hasn't aged well. Back in the day, though, this wasn't uncommon. Whether it was the limitations of the 4:3 aspect ratio or just the lingering influence of arcade, quarter munchers, off-screen threats were a part of the package. Paperboy 2 brings a lot of them. The difficulty is brutal right from the jump. This game is gleefully unforgiving, like it's daring you to take it seriously just so it can laugh at you. And honestly, that might be where the fun is. If you can mentally reframe your mission from delivering papers efficiently to barely surviving an obstacle course designed by your cartoonishly angry neighbors, there's amusement to be found in the madness. Sometimes you just have to bow to the absurd. Other. And oh, how absurd it is! If you thought the gameplay was chaotic, wait until you really start noticing what's happening in this neighborhood. This game doesn't just throw hazards at you, it constructs an entire Rube Goldberg suburb of doom. Dangers include cars, zombie-esque jaywalkers, ghosts, storm drains, dude tossing a baseball across the street, another dude bowling with tires across the street, armed burglaries, inexplicable car crashers, and dogs that behave like they've been genetically engineered for speed. You're not just delivering newspapers, you're skimming the edge of the apocalypse. It almost feels like Paperboy 2 is the licensed tie-in to a horror movie. The kind that would have appeared on the NES or Genesis, cashing out on whatever B-tier slasher was in theaters that month. But the movie doesn't exist. Yet. Hey, Hollywood! Your next summer slasher? Paperboy 2? Just imagine the trailer. Just when you thought it was safe to ride a bike. There's also an end-of-level stunt track where you're momentarily allowed to channel your inner BMX daredevil and rack up some bonus points. It's a nice touch, albeit one that feels like it's been grafted in from a more normal game. All told, Paperboy 2 is less a depiction of suburban Americana and more of a fever dream set to the rustling newsprint and sound of your own impending doom. Whether you read it as satire, horror, or just someone's idea of a weird joke, one thing is clear: it's committed to the bit. The one-player experience. There is no experience here, only misery. Okay, that's an exaggeration. Technically, yes, this is a playable video game. But for most players, the solo experience of Paperboy 2 is less about delivering newspapers and more about enduring wave after wave of slapstick punishment from a town seemingly cursed by ancient newsprint deities. Adding a second player might sound like a good way to dull the pain. After all, misery loves company, right? Then you read the manual. Players alternate turns, but they're both stuck on the same day, as in no one advances to the next day until both players do. The idea is to keep progress synchronized. One player doesn't speed ahead into Wednesday while the other is still trapped in the endless Monday loop. A noble thought in theory. In practice, it means you're chained to your partner's skill level, or lack thereof. What? Why? Since no one in the history of ever is likely to complete day one casually, the whole two-player setup feels less like a shared adventure and more like a tag-team descent into madness. It's just trading off turns between game overs while neither of you make progress. And yes, there are full playthroughs of this game online. Some brave souls finished Paperboy 2. And I cannot, in good conscience, disrespect that kind of dedication. That's the kind of mental fortitude you don't teach. You either have it or you don't. As for who would actually enjoy this game, clips the ever-loving coupons out of me. Legacy. Paperboy 2 saw a wide release with ports on numerous consoles, but from what I've heard, few versions are quite as punishing as the SNES port. It's a tough ride, in more ways than one. Still, it's the original Paperboy that tends to resurface in retro collections and compilations. That's the game that had the novelty, the arcade roots, and just enough charm to keep its memory alive. Paperboy 2? Not so much. And yet, while it's largely unremarkable in gameplay, it remains utterly unforgettable in its sheer, unfiltered absurdity. It's like someone stitched together a neighborhood from half-remembered childhood anxieties and dared you to bike through it. A pixelated parade of nonsense. A suburb designed by a committee of chaos gremlins. The game may not have left a major legacy, but its brand of off-the-rails weirdness, that's hard to unsee. Overall, Paperboy 2 is the kind of game that dares you to laugh through the pain. The controls are manageable, the visuals are solid, and the sound effects are pretty decent. But none of that softens the blow of a neighborhood that seems actively hostile to your existence. From its isometric trickery to its endless gotcha-style obstacles, it's less a game and more a test of how long you can endure the chaos before giving into it. And yet, buried under all that frustration is a strange charm. The kind that makes you shake your head, sigh, and say, sure, why not have a tornado steal my bike? It's not a good game by most standards, but it is an unforgettable one. And sometimes, that's its own kind of legacy. Paperboy 2, an exciting place to visit, but I wouldn't want to live there. Next. To be announced. Thanks for watching, and as always, see you next mission. And yet, while it's largely unremarkable in gameplay, it remains utterly unforgivable.